trip held many surprises for us, and not the least of which was the little town of Roma, which as we came through was having a sculpture festival. On the road between Burke and Cobar and heading towards Broken Hill, there were literally thousands of goats on the side of the road. Turns out these goats are all feral, and fortunately they've got enough smarts to stay off the road. I didn't see a single roadkill, unlike the crazy emus and kangaroos that we encounter on other parts of the trip. Broken Hill's a great little town, with the mine situated right in the middle of town. Unlike Mount Isa, Broken Hill is clean, tidy, and very welcoming. We joined in on a culture and historical walk around town, which took 2 hours and really explained the history of Broken Hill. We didn't know, for example, that BHP, the mining company, originated here. What a fascinating little place. And on top of that, it was the filming location for Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Of course, we had to have dinner at the Palace Hotel. Broken Hill was very much a union-run town in the early days, and despite their claims to unity and friendship, if you weren't in the union, you were out of town.
How are we, everyone? Merry Christmas. God bless.
Thank you.
Okay, how you going? It's real too.
One of the many stories about the Palace Hotel was that somewhere along the line a local Aboriginal artist was engaged to paint a mural on the wall, and the payment was free room and board. As it turns out, he painted every conceivable space within the hotel, and he lived there for over 4 years. Broken Hill is also home to the famous Australian artist Pro Hart. Now, Pro Hart worked for 35 years as an underground miner, and the majority of his artwork depicts faceless people and ants, both of which he felt accurately depicted the plight or the status of the mining people that he worked with.
I don't want any more. And my heart.
just outside of Broken Hill lies the little town of Silverton. Silverton is the step-off point for the annual Monday Bash, which is a huge musical concert and is held out in the middle of the desert and attracts, last year there was over 15,000 people. It's also home to the Mad Max Museum. Mad Max, the movies, were filmed very much around this area. We're in the town of Peterborough. We're headed on to Mount Little Station for our farm stay. We had a couple of days here and did some four-wheel driving and made friends with the local emus and had a really, really great time. Got some four-wheel drive practice on the way down. Was it steep? Hell yeah. Did it deter old mate on his push bike? Hell no. Goon Saloon. After Mount Little Station, we headed further west through Kimber, which marks the halfway point across Australia, and across to Penong. Penong is west of Ceduna, and really it marks the beginning of the Nullarbor crossing. So the reason we travelled to Penong was to see Lake MacDonald, which is colloquially known as the Pink Lake. And one side of it is pink and one side of it is blue. But it's very, very dependent upon the rainfall and the weather and the time of year. Unfortunately, when we visited, it was kind of a little bit pink, but not really what you would expect. So yeah, a little bit disappointing, but the road travels right across the middle of the lake, and then it takes you out to the coast where there's some really spectacular surfing coastline at a place called Cactus Beach, and also Port LaHunt was worth a visit. Penong for $40 a night, you get power, water, clean amenities, a level campground. Here at Cactus Beach, for $40 a night, you get a block of sand, and that's about it. Baldy Seafood is something of an institution in Streaky Bay, and with good cause. These were by far the best oysters we had on the whole trip, and that even includes the ones we had in Coffin Bay. Ceduna Foreshore Caravan Park was right on the water, and the amenities block could only be described in one word: wow. Nice pool, incredible camp kitchen, and a great fish cleaning area as well. The Eyre Peninsula south of Ceduna has miles and miles of white sandy beaches, rocky coastlines that have been chewed away over the hundreds or thousands of years, with nothing between here and Antarctica, cold winds and flies. Flies everywhere. These fly bonnets tucked away in the back of the caravan for a couple of years now. Never had the chance to use them before, but boy oh boy did they get a workout down here at Colton on our way to Coffin Bay. There was a roadside bakery on YouTube, and also this road, which was the Coastal Sculptures Road at the town of Elliston. I would have driven straight past it if I hadn't found it on YouTube, and it was just an amazing road that wound its way right round the coastline, gave us an appreciation of the ruggedness, and at designated spots, it was the whole road's about 22 kilometres long, and then at little spots along the way there was these sculpture installations, and all very well designed, with a place to pull over so you could stop and have a look. And this was our view for lunch. One of the highlights of this trip was our visit to Coffin Bay, which we went out on an oyster adventure, I suppose you would call it, to learn about how the oysters are cultivated in the oyster leases. We nearly missed this trip because the night before, all of the rest of Australia except Queensland had switched over to daylight saving. And it was only as we were sitting having breakfast, leisurely making ourselves ready for the day, I read an article on my iPad and went, oh no, we've got daylight saving, we better get going. So yeah, we only just made the trip, but it was amazing. It really was amazing. The water is just so clear. It's absolutely pristine, which is why the oysters are so good. Here we are wading amongst the oyster beds in Coffin Bay. And the process of growing them out and preparing them for shipping is really quite intense. So I now have a whole new appreciation for why they cost so much.
These guys here might be 4 or 5 months behind the others, but eventually they'll grow into an oyster that we get to sell rather than have it starved to death. After our first 3 months, what we hope to see, most of our product around these 2 sizes here.
And of course, when you're this close to the oysters, there's only one thing left to do, isn't there? Tumby Bay is another great little town. A lot of people come here for the coastline, but it's also renowned for quite a lot of street art, and it should be renowned for these pies. They were the best on our trip. After Tumby Bay, we had a short stop overnight in Whyalla, and then it was off to Adelaide, where we visited our favourite vineyard, Peter Lehman's, went to Maggie Beer's farm, went to Costco, and went to the Barossa Fresh Fruit and Produce Market, where we stocked up on lovely fresh produce, beautiful tomatoes, lovely fresh lettuce, all these beautiful old grapevines growing along the edge of the pedestrian walkway. Then we met up with the quarantine requirements. Apparently in the South Australia, you cannot even transport your fruit and vegetables within the state. So after stocking up on fresh fruit and vegetables, Kerry then had to stop at the roadside, where we had the choice to either dump it or cook it. So obviously we had to stop for a while and cook it all up. At this point, with the smell of home in our nostrils, and after overnight stops in Hay, Gilgandra and Goondiwindi, we were finally home. We're all ready to start planning our next trip, wherever that may be.